Hello, how are you? I would love to play for you. Wandering fingers on the keyboard. It's sort of like visualizing the thought process, or perhaps just unorganized, passing, fragmented thoughts, as we all experiment every day in our lives. Debussy, in his compositional organization of thoughts, allows for that to happen. You start hearing something and then something else passes through your mind and then it's interrupted, and then you go to something else after, and then it makes no sense except that at the end of the day or the piece you have the impression, wow, I captured something. Something was contagious, something just sticks in the mind, and other things just flow. It's the opposite of the organized thought process of the first Viennese school, two-theme sonata form of Haydn. So perhaps it's a certain kind of modernity, or perhaps just transcribing a different way of transmitting one's inner world. When I just let my fingers wander, very naturally I go to the circle of fifths, then B flat, like all of us, then A flat, then back through the diminished fifth, and I'm in C minor throughout. Charted. I have some train tracks through which I move. Then I could start doing, instead of using only the root positions through the circle of fifths, then I can start using inversions to melodize my melodic bass instead of doing only root positions. So I can do inversions to create linear voicings. Adding foreign notes, accidentals. This chromaticism from the Greek color fascinated most of the composers. It's sort of mixed major and minor, besides the mood meaning to what we attribute to major or minor, more than they did, or less than we want to accept. With some chords that are so ambivalent, ambiguous, and unresolved that they leave you in a lingering expectation, like diminished seventh, double tritone, interlaced. Liszt's always used it, sort of like the enigma of life in the chord. It goes nowhere, it's everywhere at the same time, and it could go anywhere. In a way, it's like mesmerizing vertigo when you go, something that you cannot help and that is constantly doomsday through. And then when you do movie music and you want to suggest something that is spooky or possibly scary or infinitely frightening, therefore you can use diminished seventh chord, immediately psychologically manipulate the watcher that this is going to go bad. So in a way, the harmonic progressions are like the grammar for musicians. So when I use the relative calm mood of these minor nines in a circle of fifths on wood positions, I satisfy to a certain tonal indulgence since I identify my key, in this case C minor. And even if I introduce a little bit of, let's say, foreign notes, appoggiaturas that lean or accacciaturas that climb, then accacciatura, appoggiatura, accacciatura, that was, and appoggiatura. Is the lingering note from the foreign chord, and pianistically repeated, since it's a percussive instrument, it helps. Because before that, it was sung. So if you do it in motets, you don't hear the appoggiaturas because they don't exist really. They are suspensions. And you hear one first triad, and then the suspension 4/3, resolving to the leading tone, and eventually to a Picardy third. Well, it doesn't have to be. And the preparation being almost equal in terms of value, you feel that it's just a way to linger the resolution, is to say this is meaningful. Instead of doing, you do. And on the piano, because you can repeat it in a percussive way, then it's an appoggiatura replayed as a dissonance rather than carried by the helt. Can happen in the bass, and then it becomes a very interesting motion. In other words, the displacing of the notes in the rhythmic grammar of the harmonic movement of the voice leading is the key to most of the musical development. It's counterpoint, polyphony. Of course, the chordality doesn't exist. The chordal facts are very important. So this is like the A, B, C, D, E, F of the alphabet of the tonality, to move with triads for the different degrees of the scale, which are reflected by the circle of fifths reduced to passing tones in conjunct motion. Adding those effects, as we call them, the appoggiaturas, the accacciaturas, the delayed resolutions, these little delays immediately soften and expressively develop a sense of dissonance with resolution consonants, or perhaps syncopated, not resolved, but always connected to a next dissonance. Music, it's suggestive even in pure music, not program music. By common notes or lingering leftover notes which resolve with delay, up or down. flexibility. It's really more like oiling. It allows for the voices and the parts to just flow more instead of doing. You do. Mademoiselle Boulanger was always asking us when we used to play our very simple harmony, let's say harmonized bass line exercises, to even play them as beautiful motets, not just but to become with the common notes held, the other parts legato, the tenor in the left hand. And think about sol, fa, sol, do, si, do, la, si, do, mi, re, mi, do, re, mi. Even in simple parts, four parts writing, to listen to the voice leading. Step motion is the key to it, and of course possibly some leaps, like let's say the it's important, the leaps, because of course the common tones and the step motion is what organizes the four parts harmony. But when there's a melodic step of more than, let's say, a third, then it becomes a gesture. And especially the leap of the sixth melodically over the fifth, it's like hugging appoggiatura. Or an appoggiatura to that sixth. So you express a sense of leap in order to drop. And usually you leap with a higher interval, let's say fifth, sixth, seventh. And then usually you drop by small steps, like sighs. Or let's take the first ballade by Chopin. And every time after the leap up, the expression of love or expression of hope, expression of going further away, comes the trickling down. And then fifth, and then second. Then seventh into the over the sixth. Again. And that gives a sense of meaning to the melodic leap. Whenever the other motions are usually step motions, and sometimes composers don't even want to use opportunity to make proper modulation. Of course, they use mostly secondary dominants. The dominant motion on each degree, the secondary dominant, thus not moving away from the key. Whenever, if you do sudden you could think, oh, F major, and if even F major, then you end up by there with a full proper cadence. But if not, it was just a hint, and then you go back to your original key of C major, which in fact you never left. Does it matter to the listener if you left, or if you borrowed, or if you traveled, or it was a secondary dominant, or a real modulation with a new dominant and another key? Perhaps not. It's like the grammar rules don't apply to native speakers who learn the language of their mother tongue by ear. I mean, you add the knowledge after in school, but you still speak it spontaneously. So to a certain extent it makes you more intelligent to know how the sentence is organized, but originally you say it without knowing it. just by ear. The intuition is a very important, strong element, and I think the education shouldn't overwhelm it. It's a kind of an awkward combination. Too much knowledge can dry the intuition or the original musical ear that brings you to play music, because it sort of calls you. You feel like cozy in it. You feel like it translates the moods, the thoughts. Basically, it's your language, like a mother tongue. And then the more you learn about it, you might become a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of rules that rule it at different styles and all. But you end up by accepting it, or perhaps, just like all students do, after the exam they forget. In a way, it's perhaps necessary to forget some things, like filtering certain things to keep the essence, or what you consider be the essence of what you need for. If you're a jazz musician compared to a Baroque violinist, obviously, even if there's still in common the circle of fifths and the tonal system in a different usage, but still tonal centered, compared to some researcher who will go into atonality, which is very different. But you still come from a certain common pool. In any case, the idea of practicing the harmonic progressions, you realize that some of the chords can be in several keys, and I said earlier, some composers don't even bother modulate. They just, boom, say I'm going to be in the other key. For instance, Beethoven, D major piano sonata, starts the development in B flat major using the dominant A of D major as the leading tone, but without the chord of it, into B flat as a surprise. Normally we would have expected, in the order of things in the first Viennese school, that it will start then in the development into the into the relative minor, in this case B minor, so it will be flat 6 degree is Haydnesque humor in music, or surprise in music, and later can become Sturm und Drang in music, dramatic effect. Well, it's not exactly the same, it's true. I don't want to confuse you with my intertwining thoughts, which is what happens very easily to me. Like, for instance, you have the D major Schubert sonata, and you have a hint of minor, and then the major sixth into the triad. In a softer way, it's, I think, very Sturm und Drang. It's not as Sturm und Drang as to hear Beethoven's 111, storm and lightning, thunder. That's a very later Romantic era concept. But it is also that the modulations, if they're prepared and announced, they're a little bit with a circle of fifths sort of agreed. When they're chromatic and dramatic and willingly distant, they change the mood, the atmosphere, the cold, the hot, the warm, the bitter, the sweet. And when they're inharmonic, they're so subtle that they make you believe that you're in the same place while you're exactly the opposite. But they look alike in a deceiving, seductive way. In the end of the Chopin etude of E-flat minor, he goes to the Neapolitan 6 flat 2nd degree, which is de facto E major for us pianists, but F flat major if we still have the E flat minor key. Which sort of sounds like hope compared to the desperate E flat minor sadness. And he's using these colors of harmonization to hint the hope. modes that the harmonies or the lingering appoggiaturas bring us to. I would like to be in G minor with a leading tone. First ballade by Chopin, diminished third between the leading tone, delay resolution, and stop on a half diminished seventh chord on the second degree. Yes. And what? Oh, why? And in a way, the opening statement, it's a closing statement with a dominant tonic perfect cadence, secondary dominant, 5 of 5. Another question. It's like, what should I do? Should I go there or should I go there? How should I find a way out of G minor, which obviously is oppressing and sad? And I use that leap that brings me to the relative major of the octave. 5 of 3, B flat major, with the accocciatura leaning towards the D, and then again that second degree half diminished seventh, returning as if doomed to remain in this G minor sadness. Try to escape it first a little, then more, but it all results into returning as if you're doomed and brought down to G minor. Then 5 of 4. Finally, the longer time you stay with the train, you get really to live in the leading tone, in the relative tone, excuse me. Still oscillating with a tonic. Now, he could have gone many ways. He decided to go in this improvisatory vocalise. And this time not an appoggiatura but a suspension. The D becoming the painful 7/6 expressive suspension. And these chromatic drops of appoggiaturas, which give after 2 pages of exposing the theme the sort of clue to the enigmatic end of introduction just prior to this theme. It's lingering ninth, minor ninth, which sort of doesn't resolve right away, but does it with little delay. And when the exposition is finished, you have understood that you're in G minor, trapped in something you really don't want to be in. You try to escape this, you try to escape that, you try to escape there, you try to escape more further there, and every time you're brought back down to your condition of G minorness through this diminished seventh, half diminished seventh, second degree chord. So does he really want to vehicle this exact psychological storytelling through the usage of the minor mode, the usage of the melodic leaps, the usage of the harmonic motions, of the secondary dominance? You can argue. Most of the time the heartfelt musicians who start studying music wonder, did these composers, if they're taught like that by the teachers, really themselves think all of that? Like Chopin sitting in front of his piano and saying, let me now linger here, let me organize a escape to the relative major, but not too long because I want to come back. As if they plan a plot for a story, for a book or for a movie. Or is it so embedded in their expression, in their language, in their style, in their expression that in a way they didn't think much of it. it was just part of their culture or their education, or both, all in one, possibly. I think it's a fascinating dialogue then, the young student through the teacher in part, but mostly directly with the composer, establishes with the music of the composer and starts inevitably imagining a thought process, sort of a dialogue with the dead, since most of the time the composer is gone. But the essence of the musical thought is there, and so it becomes a dialogue. When do I show that this means to me, and how much, and how can I bridge a phrase or just respond to the tension release expression? I think the storytelling is easy to say, difficultly done, because we are obliged to think of details like playing the notes, organizing our thoughts, making sure the pedal is not too covering, doing the dynamics, respecting the additions, indications. In other words, the traffic signs overtake the meaning of the road, if I may say, since I always like to use analogies. But when you know the piece well enough, it becomes a companion who travels with you through life, and then I guess you are the piece while you play it. You are the voice of the composer's thoughts, even if others do too, of the same piece, but it becomes temporarily adopted or personal. It's meaningful to you, regardless of all other considerations, and then you play it and you transmit something that is in fact unwordable, which defeats all these words that I was trying to put in to try to describe, explain, or organize thoughts about. It's probably the ultimate nonsense of the teacher, is to put words in music meaning when the music itself are the words. Thank you.